Hi, my name is Nick Kroger. I want to share my Vasa Previa story. My wife is Tina, who also has a video on this channel, and she's the one that actually manages the channel to help spread awareness and share stories for people to understand what our Vasa Previa was like and give you kind of an idea of what it's like to go through. So I want to go through our story, and what I'm going to try to do, as much as I can, keep the Vasa Previa in a bubble, because there are a lot of outside factors that recording this video. Our pregnancy happened right during COVID in the United States. Additionally, my wife was just blocks away from riots from the George Floyd protests, where buildings were burnt. I'm going to try to leave politics and everything out of it and just speak directly and solely on the Vasa Previa, chiming in kind of where necessary here. So to go through our story, it started out in November. We'd been trying out for a few weeks and a few months to get pregnant, kind of casually seeing where it would go, and eventually in November we found out we were pregnant. It's fantastic. It's my family's first grandkid from my parents, so they were ecstatic, and be able to kind of break the news in surprise, fun ways. Like being in November, like, oh yeah, we went Black Friday shopping. Oh, what'd you get? Well, we got some clothes, we got some video games, baby stroller. Whoa, a baby stroller. Oh yeah, didn't we tell you we were expecting? So that was kind of fun to be able to break it to them in a little bit of a fun way. So from November, we had a few appointments. Everything went kind of swimmingly. January, here's a picture of our ultrasound. This is a little baby, still in the womb. That, as you can tell in the picture, there's really no indication or nothing to say, yeah, this is abnormal or there's going to be complications. So, baby's in the womb, hooray! So, we just kind of continued on with life for the time being. Everything was going well until about March. We had no complications or signs or anything. We just had an appointment for an ultrasound. And our doctor, actually it was the nurse who performed the ultrasound, and kind of what gave it away for me in hindsight was that she was really chatty and talkative with us, and I appreciate that because it's kind of scary to have ultrasound. And then she kind of said, well, I can't get a very good image here. Let me try a vaginal ultrasound. I'm kind of like, yeah, well, okay, do what you got to do. And she kind of got less chatty, and it's like, well, I feel like this shouldn't be that complicated. Like, ignorant man. Oh yeah, there's a baby. All right, see you later. So when they actually looked at it and they called the doctor, and we were very appreciative that the diagnosis went so smoothly and got caught so early. The doctor was very, very good, and immediately just was pretty blunt with us and said, look, I'm going to get a second opinion from a specialist here, but I'm very confident that you have a condition called Vasa Previa. And that was about it, and we kind of went on our way, and my wife was mostly upset when we found that out, because going to a specialist is never really something that's good or wanted, because that means there's something so complicated that it needs a specialty. Myself, in my own ignorant bubble, was like, oh, Vasa Previa, pretty sure I had that in like 4th grade. And not really being able to grasp kind of what was happening. And once we got to the specialty visit in March, I think we were able to get one in before they weren't allowing me to any further visits, where they explained to us rather, that, this is a risk for blood loss, baby blood loss. And yeah, we can confirm that we do think it's Vasa Previa. And that was kind of the point where it's like, all right, well, again, you confirmed it. What does this mean? And what they told us was that normally they recommend an admission to the hospital for essentially bed rest, beginning around the 28-week mark, and that a planned C-section would be the best bet around 34 to 38 weeks, I think is the window they gave us. So doing the math in my head, I was like, it's like 6+ weeks of my wife being in the hospital, and being, again, ignorant, selfish guy, I'm like, I can't even cook for like one night. Like, I'm in trouble here. And then to kind of have the sobering moment of like, hey, this is fatherhood. Like, this is the safety of your baby. Then my train of thought went to, all right, well, this is what has to be done to keep our baby alive. And you don't really think a whole lot of it at first, that this is what needs to be done. But it kind of hits you hard that well, this sucks. But to be honest, it was also, looking at the ultrasound 11 weeks, we're still talking 10+ weeks or so down the line, or 8 weeks or so, that I'm not really worried about it. That, well, I'm just gonna live in the now. Who knows? Maybe they're wrong. Maybe it'll fix itself. I don't know. So we kind of went through everything as normal. With COVID, we ended up having a virtual baby shower. That was actually pretty nice. That everybody was very generous with their gifts and generous to us. I'll say, for me personally, I thought this was one of the best avenues and venues for us to try to explain the situation to everybody, because it got very tiresome, worrisome, and really, frankly, defeating, having people routinely ask you, like, "Oh, how's Mama doing?" Like, good. She's going to be in the hospital. Most people are kind of understanding, but to have those conversations and have it continually brought up in mind and in memory, just not particularly fun when you kind of get closer and closer to the date. Yeah, and think, oh, my wife's going to be gone. I don't know what's going to happen to my baby. This was our first. I don't know what even to expect. But we used the baby shower as an opportunity to explain to everybody, all right, here's what's happening. Tina's going to be in the hospital for 6 weeks. Everybody's fine. We expect everything to be fine. That's the best place for her to be. Her work's very, very nice and generous, and understands the situation. And I operate my own business and can work from home. So it's not a huge deal for me either. So we got to the point where my wife was actually admitted to the hospital. This was probably around mid-May or so. And it snuck up kind of quicker than I thought. Having the alone time to myself was, at first kind of nice, because, you get stressed out thinking about, I gotta make sure my wife's happy and all this, petty little things in the grand scheme of, all right, well, now I get more room to kick out and relax. I can eat whatever I want. I can, be dirty and trashy, and it doesn't matter. But I made an effort to go visit my wife once every other day. To put in perspective, I know a lot of people might be saying, you only went every other day? You should have been there every day for her. From our home to Minneapolis, we did have to pay for parking, and the drive was about 40 minutes one way. So, we decided we're fine doing video calls on the days that I don't visit. Um, you know, Really, she understood that there's not going to be much to do in the hospital, that it's not, super fun for me just to come, sit in a hospital chair while she lays in a hospital bed. Um, but at the same time, I wanted to be there for her and made the effort to go visit her. Now, again, this is where kind of the separation between COVID and Vasa Previa really matters. Um, we were given a restriction of only one visitor allowed, which honestly was kind of a blessing for the way my wife looked at it. In her words, that she felt like she wasn't missing anything, that she wasn't going to get wedding invites and birthday party invites and invitations to go out to dinner, because everybody was at home, everything was closed, so everybody was bored. So, well, at least I can be bored in a hospital. So that was pretty nice. I was the one designated visitor. It was a little bit of a challenge to try to grasp and comprehend that, well, that also means that we can't have any extra visitors come see her. But most of our family lives out of state, so we were okay with that. However, the restrictions for Vasa Previa were that they want you to stay in your room, basically no exercise, nothing to strain your body, more or less that do nothing to provoke labor and do nothing to be far away from the hospital, where if we had to have an emergency C-section that we couldn't do it in 5 minutes. So she was confined to her room unless if a nurse or myself brought her out. Again, a little bit of a COVID that normally she'd be able to walk the floor. But here's a picture of us together walking down the street in the block. You can see him pushing her in a wheelchair there. That it was almost a little, I don't know if she enjoyed it or not. It felt a little humiliating that, well, you can't leave your room, and if you do leave your room, you need to sit in a chair and get pushed around. But at the same time, that also means you don't get sweaty and have to go exert a bunch of effort when you're bloated and pregnant. So give take. But in Minnesota is a nice summer. I'd mentioned that we were just a few blocks away from the George Floyd protests, that we were able to walk down there, kind of take in the solidarity of people protesting, and also see kind of the damages that were done to keep it in perspective for us, which, firsthand witnessing helped to do so. Again, leaving politics out of it, but after a while, during my wife's 6-week hospital stay, here's a picture of her that she really started to miss the sun, because her room actually faced a parking garage, so the sun barely came in at all, and just getting fluorescent lights all day. She's like, I just want to stand in the sun. I'm like, it's 90. I'm sweating from the walk in here. She's like, no. So here's a picture of her. It was actually on her birthday. I stopped in and bought her little cupcakes and her favorite Mexican fast food place, Santiago. She was super happy about that. I don't know if we were stretching the rules or not either, but we also brought in her little puppy dog to spend some time with her, because we love Maya, and it was really hard for her to be away from the dog, as much as it was me taking care of the dog at home, but also Tina having an emotional connection with something, that I would FaceTime her while I was walking the dog around and showing her, like, yeah, here's the dog in the grass. Like, here's her being goofy, sniffing poop. So being able to bring the dog in was just fantastic. So I, again, appreciate the hospital for allowing us to do that. From there, we hit the point where it was the C-section date. I went in there and honestly, again, had no idea what a C-section would be. What it'd be like, all I really told them in advance was, I don't want to see anything, traditions like clipping the umbilical cord, not for me. I don't even really like cutting the string on my shirt. Just you do what you got to do and give me that baby. So the Vasa Previa, everything in the hospital went fine. There was really no complications or anything. It was just kind of a waiting out process and, frankly, boredom. So when that C-section date arrived, we had a successful C-section delivery. For me, I'll try to keep as graphic content out of it, but what was pretty amazing was that even though you had this complicated condition, the whole staff there was so fantastic that they understood, like, that's why you're here. This is why we're good at what we do. That, to have kind of the curtain up and I'm sitting next to my wife holding her hand, which, by the way, they sat me in a room for 20 minutes and were like, Nick, come on. So I got in there, sit down, hold your wife's hand. All right, here's your baby. Like, oh yeah, that's the baby. That was the first time it really actually hit me and felt real. That I'm like, oh, like that is ours. That's beautiful. Like, I can't believe that thing's alive. So here's a picture of her. This is still in the operating room. She came out 5 pounds 7 ounces. Again, to put it kind of in perspective of, hearing some other stories, that it's a little scary, but how good these doctors are, that they were having basically side conversations while they were performing the surgery, and they did it proficiently and, honestly, as far as I know, perfectly. To be able to take Jackie, have a successful birth, all while having a conversation about if they know so-and-so from so-and-so college. So, being really grateful that there were some members of the hospital staff, too, that were incredibly compassionate. Not to say having a conversation means they can't be, but, I think the anesthesiologist came over and would reassure Tina that, hey, everything's going great. You're doing fantastic. Here's where we are. We've got about 10 minutes left. When Jackie came out, they started doing the initial tests to make sure everything was okay. Again, kind of my own ignorance. I was like, oh, well, yeah, it's okay. See, she's breathing. And they were like, well, she's kind of got a heavy breathing pattern. We're going to go send her up and put her on oxygen. Okay. And my wife and I discussed beforehand and said, if they need to take the baby out, Nick, go with the baby. Okay. So we're in the, I don't even remember what it was called at this point, but like the newborn center. They had her on oxygen, and we're giving her her first shots and whatnot. And they said, well, her oxygen levels aren't quite getting where they need to be. So you should probably go be with your wife here, and we're going to transfer her over to the NICU. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't really even know what a NICU is, but okay. So I go meet up with Tina. She was doing pretty well after surgery. And I think kind of the hardest part for both Tina and I was that they rushed Jackie in, I don't even, like in a baby carrier cart thing. And we're like, okay, well, here's Jackie. Let's take a quick picture, which is, here's Jackie with Tina. And then they took a family picture of us and said, okay, we have to go now. It's like, is everything okay? I don't know. That was really scary for me. That I don't know if that's normal or not. Um, but they were bringing over to the NICU, and just to be like, wait. We went through 6 weeks of a hospital stay, and you're just taking our baby. Um, that was tough. Um, but again, all right, she's with nurses, doctors. They're good. They know what they're doing. So we, went and had Tina's, got her transitioned back to her hospital room, um, and honestly, and I think part of it's just kind of everybody was doing what they had to do, and there's not one person be kind of the liaison and coordinator. Um, Jackie was, at the NICU, and we really had no idea how to visit her. And again, just made it really tough for us that I went over to the NICU, and I can't remember exactly, but almost basically got turned away because, well, you weren't listed as a official visitor of Jackie. It's like, I'm the dad. Here's my wristband. Like, oh, well, that's for the other hospital. Like, okay, well, what do I have to do to get my baby back here? Um, and eventually, my wife and I were able to go visit Jackie, and they explained everything and filled out the paperwork and whatnot. And when we got up there, she was actually on a breathing tube. Um, she had they call it, well, again, people might know what this means, people might not, but it's called an NG tube, nasal gastral tube that they were pumping milk into her stomach directly. She was also on a CPAP machine. Um, I kept joking with my family that both my mom and dad have one. Oh yeah, she must take after grandma and grandpa. But um, it's kind of heartbreaking and really hurt to be like, man, I love this little baby and I want her, but she's a month early and she's got to be in the NICU here. I don't know what we're gonna do. So that lasted about 2 days. And finally, her oxygen levels got good enough that she was breathing on her own and everything was kind of surviving. And where this is the part that I don't think gets relayed very well to you. Your wife will get discharged from the hospital after the cesarean section, but your baby can still be admitted to the hospital. So for us, we were pretty fortunate that they were able to transfer Jackie up to a hospital closer to us, the Mother Baby Center, where we were able to keep a shorter drive to go visit her. But it made it more complicated because, well, now my wife's at home who's sore and stiff and doesn't really want to get out of bed, but she also desperately wants to see her baby. Trying to be the good husband, but also be the guy that's, playing chef, chauffeur, dad. Um, also while through those nights operating off of, 4 hours of sleep off of a sticky plastic couch, it just got kind of exhausting where it's like, I know this is going to be what parenthood's going to be like always, but, it's really, really hard to balance and be there for everybody right now. But we made frequent visits to go see Jackie every day at the hospital. She slowly progressed, but the hard thing as a partner and a spouse was that my wife was starting to get very anxious and frustrated because, again, I'm taking care of her, but she's going through all these things herself too. That if she could have a perfect world where she could just hop in the car and go see the baby, she would. But that wasn't realistic yet. So Jackie was there for about 2 weeks, and we had a couple of, you know, I'll call them minor run-ins, if you will, where we told the staff that we weren't too happy, that we feel like she should be making progress and our baby's the only one that should matter, more or less. And they took it in stride and were nice about it, but um, it just kind of wears on you when you know your baby's going to have to be in the hospital for a while. And the ignorance of myself was that, oh, well, yeah, we're going to pop the baby up, bring her home, and everybody's happy. Well, it turned into, well, she needs a NICU stay. Well, NICU stay, 2 days, okay. Well, yeah, it's probably going to be closer to a week. And, I'm not going to hold people to a timeline when they tell me something like that, because I know it's unpredictable. Well, that week turns into 2 weeks. And, you just want to get home with that baby and start your family. Positive note, though, I will say, with Jackie still being admitted in the hospital, for that recovery period, we were able to go home and sleep in our own bed, away from the baby, which stinks, but being able to get a good 8 hours sleep meant a lot. Another positive here of the NICU and the Mother Baby Center was that in Minnesota they have a web feed where they set up a little camera right over the baby, so you can watch on your phone and see what baby is doing 99% of the time, just sleeping. But you can also share that with the grandma and grandpa, so they aren't calling you all the time, even though mine still did. But so after about 2 weeks, we were able to get Jackie home and discharged from the hospital. It's kind of funny looking at this picture and how little she is opposed to how big she is now. But then we got home, and that's kind of when everything went back to normal. I know some people have postpartum depression and issues. By and large, ours went pretty smoothly. We found a good system that worked for us, as far as I would stay up until about 3 or 4 in the morning, and my wife would wake up at about 5 or 6 to feed and change diapers. But yeah, so that's our quick story, and being able to be in our own bed with the baby and the dog. The dog's still trying to figure out what Jackie is, but she's our bundle of joy, and we love her. So, right, she just turned 5 months here just a couple of days ago, and she's the light of our world, and we love her. So, hope you enjoyed my story and were able to make it through. And I know it's kind of a lot to comprehend, but I would say the big things to take away are that it is a scary diagnosis for a family. From a husband's standpoint, the hospital that they caught it, that's super important and super fantastic that they're aware of it. Your wife, your baby is going to be in the best spot possible should something ever go wrong. Two, plan on some boredom. That I know that's really complicated as far as how to plan for it, but be ready to go surprise your wife, your spouse. Help them out through the process, give them things to do, because you're there to be support. And three, have realistic expectations. Again, I live kind of a blissfully ignorant life to say that I think, oh yeah, everything's going to go well. We're going to get discharged from the hospital and go home. That's why we're in the hospital. The hospital staff is going to put your baby and your wife exactly where they need to be to get the proper care. And I'm incredibly grateful. I'm super happy. And every day when I get to wake up and look at this little face, that's all I ever wanted. So thanks for listening to my story. Take care, and please feel free to comment with any questions.